winter sun was sinking behind the skyscrapers of Detroit when Ethan Cole, a grease-stained mechanic, wiped his hands on a rag and glanced at the half-finished engine on his workbench. It wasn't just any engine, it was his dream. A design so efficient, so ahead of its time, that if anyone gave it a chance, it could change how America built machines forever. But no one had time for a small-town mechanic. Especially not a single father raising a 7-year-old girl named Mia, who spent her evenings doing homework beside the sound of clanking tools. "Daddy, will someone buy your engine?" she asked, her big brown eyes full of faith. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe not today, Pumpkin. But one day, someone will notice." A week later, fate came disguised as a storm. Ethan had been hired to fix a delivery van that broke down near his workshop. When he opened the hood, he saw a logo that made his heart skip. AeroCore Industries, one of the largest engineering firms in the U.S. The driver mentioned their CEO, Clara Winton, was visiting town to inspect a new engine prototype, one the company couldn't get to work. Ethan hesitated, then pulled a dusty folder from his shelf, blueprints of his own invention. On a desperate impulse, he decided to drive to the event and try his luck. The next morning, Ethan and little Mia arrived at the massive AeroCore headquarters, where engineers in suits hurried between glass doors. Security almost turned them away until Mia, bold and curious, blurted, "My daddy made an engine that runs cleaner than yours." A few heads turned. A tall woman in a dark blue suit, CEO Clara Winton herself, approached. "Is that so?" she asked with a faint smile. "And what makes your engine so special, Mr. Cole?" "Ethan Cole. It runs on half the fuel, no carbon waste, and twice the efficiency." But no one wanted to test it. Clara's curiosity piqued. She nodded to her chief engineer. "Bring him to Lab 3. Inside the lab, Ethan carefully unveiled his design. The room went quiet as he explained every wire, piston, and mechanism, his hands trembling slightly as he spoke. The engineers exchanged skeptical looks, but Clara leaned in, fascinated. When the test began, the prototype hummed to life. The screen showed numbers: perfect combustion rate, low heat loss, flawless pressure balance. Gasps filled the room. "This is impossible," one engineer whispered. Ethan smiled nervously. "No, sir. It's math." And a lot of sleepless nights. The engine ran smoother than anything they'd seen. Even the AI diagnostic system blinked. Optimal performance, 100%. Clara turned to him slowly. "Who helped you design this?" Before Ethan could speak, Mia tugged her sleeve and said softly, "My daddy did. I just passed him the tools." Everyone laughed gently, everyone except Clara. She stared at the child, her eyes filling with something no one expected: guilt. Hours later, in Clara's private office overlooking the city, silence hung between them. She finally said, "Mr. Cole, 20 years ago, a man came to this company with a design similar to yours. My father, who was CEO then, rejected him, said small-town ideas don't belong in big industries." Ethan frowned. "That's how it always is, isn't it?" Clara looked down. "That man was your father, wasn't he?" Ethan froze. "How do you know that name?" She opened an old digital file showing the name Daniel Cole, Ethan's late father. "I never forgot that engine. I was a child then, watching from the back of the boardroom. He begged them to listen, but they didn't. He walked away that day, and I swore I'd never let something like that happen again." For the first time, Ethan couldn't find words. Mia climbed onto his lap, whispering, "Daddy, she's nice. Maybe she'll help you." Clara smiled softly. "Your daughter's right. I'm not my father. I believe in what's right and this engine. Mr. Cole is right. The following week, AeroCore made headlines. Local mechanics design revolutionizes. Engine efficiency, AeroCore announces partnership. The deal wasn't about money for Ethan. It was about respect and the chance to give Mia a better future. He'd gone from fixing broken engines to building the future of clean energy. At the launch ceremony, engineers, investors, and reporters gathered around the shining prototype. Clara took the stage, but when the cameras turned to her, she paused and said, "This engine wasn't born in a lab. It was born in a father's love for his daughter, and a daughter's belief in her father. She looked at Mia. "Little one, who designed this engine?" Mia beamed proudly and pointed. "My daddy did." The crowd erupted in applause. Ethan blinked back tears as the world finally saw him, not as a forgotten mechanic, but as the man who changed how America would move forward. That night, as they stood under the glowing city lights, Ethan lifted Mia into his arms. "You did it, Daddy," she whispered sleepily. "You showed them." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the skyline. "No, sweetheart. We did it." From the corner of the room, Clara watched silently, knowing she hadn't just discovered an invention. She had rediscovered her own humanity. True genius doesn't come from titles, money, or degrees. It comes from belief, love, and the courage to stand up for what you've built with your own hands. Sometimes it takes a child's voice to remind the world of that truth.